right-handed from three. Hole comes soaring in again. This uncanny knack. And cashes in.
Is on the upper left wing. Just got inside, circles around, pure effort.
Something about that night felt off. Not because of the crowd, not because of the pressure, because of what happened after the whistle. The Indiana Fever weren't just battling the Las Vegas Aces, they were fighting gravity itself. Every time they built rhythm, a foul call sliced through it. Every time momentum tilted their way, the officials found a reason to hit pause. And inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the disbelief grew so loud you could feel it rattle the floorboards. Fans weren't watching a contest anymore. They were watching a heist unfold in real time. Game 3 was supposed to be the Fever's statement. They were leading, defending, making plays that screamed hunger. But then, out of nowhere, the energy collapsed under a flood of whistles. The Aces found themselves on the free throw line again and again, while Indiana's best defenders stared in disbelief. A'ja Wilson threw elbows. Aaliyah Boston tried to contest, and somehow everything broke the same way. What should have been a showcase of grit turned into a slow bleed that ended with Vegas walking off like nothing happened. For the players, it was frustration. For the fans, it was fury. Clips of the missed calls spread online within minutes. Fans analyzed frames, circled elbows, slowed down screens, and asked the same question: was this still basketball, or had something deeper taken over?
A'ja Wilson sets a screen where she extends her leg out, but of course they call the foul on Lexie Hall for A'ja Wilson's illegal screen. Then A'ja Wilson and Nalissa Smith totally foul Michaela Timpson, but there is no call. Could have took a 1-point lead going into half. Now we're up by 3 and they call a foul that isn't a foul. So we don't get calls when we're getting hit, but the Aces get a call when nobody touches anybody.
It started with one possession. Aaliyah Boston challenged a foul on Jackie Young. Everyone in the arena saw Stephanie White motion for a review, but the officials wouldn't even acknowledge it. Seconds later, Chelsea Gray buried a corner three, flipping the entire game in an instant. The crowd that had been roaring a heartbeat ago froze in disbelief. Indiana's lead evaporated, and suddenly, the energy belonged to the Aces. On paper, it looked like a routine run. In reality, it was the moment everything cracked. The Fever's defensive rhythm vanished. Instead of fast breaks and transition plays, they were forced to walk the ball up after every whistle. You could see it in their faces, the frustration, the disbelief. And the worst part? The fans knew it too. Clips of the ignored challenge flooded social media, dissected frame by thousands of fans pointing out how the game's momentum was stolen by indecision. This wasn't just a swing and score, it was a swing and trust. And before we dive deeper into how this changed the entire series, I want to hear from you, the real basketball analyst watching this. If you think the Fever got robbed, hit that like button right now. If you believe in fair play, subscribe, because here, we break down the real stories the mainstream ignores. Drop a comment below with your take on whether officiating went too far. Your voice builds this community. Now, let's talk about the whistle storm that buried the Fever.
Steph, why don't you think you were able to find any flow, and when that was the case, what are you trying to do to jumpstart things, maybe on the defense?
Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. And when they're at the free throw line, we can't get up and down the floor. And that's a challenge. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively. We didn't counter that with our off-ball actions or with our back cuts. So they took us out of our comfort zone. I mean, offense is about rhythm, it's about timing, it's about spacing. We allowed them to do that, and they kept us from doing it.
By the time Game 2 ended, Stephanie White had already said it. It's hard to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. That wasn't an exaggeration. It was the perfect summary of what came next. Game 3 felt like deja vu. Every time the Fever tried to push pace, another whistle stopped the action. Offense thrives on rhythm. Rhythm dies in stoppage. And when rhythm dies, so does belief. The Aces, meanwhile, played a different sport. They leaned on those stoppages, built comfort at the free throw line, and slowly chipped away at Indiana's energy. The Fever's defensive intensity, normally their heartbeat, was turned against them. What should have been called physical playoff basketball was punished like a crime scene. One team got freedom, The other got warnings. It wasn't just frustrating, it was disorienting. You could almost see the air leave the court. Indiana's bench grew quiet between possessions, not because of effort, but because every call felt like a setup. You can train for pressure, but you can't prepare for that kind of imbalance. And that's what made the next storyline even more remarkable, because one player decided that, whistle or not, she wasn't giving in.
A'ja Wilson is 1 for 12 as a foul is called on Boston, and that will be number 2 on Aaliyah Boston.
You saw Indiana picking up full court pressure defensively, and if you're Aaliyah Boston, that's the one spot on the floor you do not want to get a foul call.
And Stephanie White is trying to challenge it and did not call the timeout in time. Gray in the corner. Cut it!
Lexie Hull should have been sitting. A sore back, limited practice, questionable status. But instead of watching, she walked onto the court like a soldier out of recovery, limping, grimacing, yet refusing to hide. And then something happened. She caught rhythm. Her threes didn't just fall, they echoed. Every make felt like a spark in a storm trying to drown out Indiana's fire. She finished with 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists, numbers you expect from a healthy starter, not an injured rotation piece. Every time the Fever needed hope, Hull delivered. She tied a franchise playoff record for made threes across 2 games, but those stats don't tell the whole story. What mattered was how she played, diving on the floor, contesting giants, stealing rebounds she had no business getting. Each time she hit the deck, fans held their breath. Each time she got up, the building roared louder. It was heart over health, grit over comfort. Hull's performance was the kind of moment that defines a franchise, not because it wins you a game, but because it reminds everyone what the jersey stands for. She turned pain into purpose. But while she lifted the Fever, someone else was quietly dismantling the Aces' superstar.
2-minute recap from last night. So A'ja Wilson pushes Howard in the back. Howard pushes her in the back. It's a foul on Howard. Look at this. Aaliyah Boston gets totally fouled by Nalissa Smith. Like, it's obvious, but no call. And then A'ja Wilson gets the call for not half as much. And then Nalissa Smith gets the call for not even getting touched. Here's a replay just to prove it to you. Yep, didn't get touched.
A'ja Wilson is the WNBA's standard of excellence. An MVP, a champion, a force that usually breaks games open. But on this night, she looked human. The reason? Aaliyah Boston. The rookie turned cornerstone met the league's best head-on, and the result was shocking. Wilson finished 6 for 20 from the field. That's 13 points on 20 shots, a line that screams frustration. Boston didn't need flash, she needed position. She held her ground, took elbows, absorbed contact, and forced Wilson to settle for awkward fades instead of powerful finishes. That's defensive discipline of the highest order, yet the box score didn't tell that story. Media headlines padded Wilson's night with mentions of rebounds and blocks, glossing over the fact that Boston had effectively erased the league's most dominant scorer for 3 quarters. And here's the irony. Despite Wilson's struggles, Vegas still walked out with a win. How? Teammates stepped up, sure, but more importantly, those same whistles that disrupted the Fever gave the Aces endless lifelines. The scoreboard may have read 84-72, but the tape tells a different story. It wasn't Vegas overpowering Indiana. It was Vegas surviving behind the officials.
Offensive foul, practically a football check, and the Aces score. So now the Aces cut it to 2, and then A'ja Wilson sets an illegal screen, and they tied things up. And then Lexie Hull gets called for a foul for doing nothing when they just had 2 illegal screens they didn't call. All right, so this is fair. Same thing happens on the other side, but they don't call a foul for Kelsey Mitchell. So Aaliyah Boston gets called for this foul for getting her arm grabbed, but Stephanie White can't challenge. They won't let her. That's the second time this game they didn't let her have her challenge. And then A'ja Wilson starts acting like a big baby.
The second the buzzer sounded, the trial began. On X, on Reddit, on TikTok, everywhere. Fans slowed the footage, drew circles around missed calls, and counted how many times challenges were ignored. There were screenshots of extended legs on screens, freeze frames of elbow contact, slow-motion clips showing Boston getting mauled under the rim. One fan-made compilation titled Fever Versus. 5 refs racked up hundreds of thousands of views overnight. The verdict online was brutal. Indiana didn't lose. Indiana got robbed. It's easy to dismiss fan outrage as bias, but this time, the evidence felt overwhelming. The ignored review signal from Stephanie White, the illegal screens that went unnoticed, the flops that drew sympathy whistles. Even neutral viewers started questioning what they'd seen. And when officiating controversy becomes more viral than the final score, the league has a perception problem no stat sheet can fix. The most haunting part? It didn't just silence praise for Lexie Hull or Boston's defense, it rewrote the narrative entirely. Instead of celebrating Indiana's resilience, Game 3 became a meme, a talking point, a how not to ref a playoff game highlight reel. The Fever had fought 2 opponents, one in red jerseys, the other in gray shirts.
Boston has the mismatch on Lloyd. Help comes. Kick out. Hull will fire. And hit from 3. Last 2 positions inside from Indiana. Smith tied up by Hull. And a jump ball between Smith and Hull.
When the series moved back to Indianapolis, the tension was thicker than air before a thunderstorm. 17,000 fans packed Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and every single one came ready to roar. The Fever weren't just playing for survival, they were playing for vindication. Becky Hammon had already warned about physicality from the Fever and subtly hinted she expected the officiating to swing back. The irony was sharp enough to cut glass. The team benefiting from calls now wanted protection. From the opening tip, the Fever attacked. Boston bullied inside, Mitchell rediscovered her rhythm, and Hull, still sore but unstoppable, hit another timely 3 that sent the crowd into chaos. The Aces looked rattled, not from skill but from sound. Every block, every steal, every whistle that didn't come was met with a wall of energy shaking the building. This wasn't just home court advantage. It was revenge disguised as noise. And it worked. Indiana turned fury into focus, out-hustling and out-toughing the defending champs. Game 4 became a statement that no controversy could mute. When the whistle doesn't interfere, the Fever can play anyone straight up. What began as a protest turned into a performance.
On the left side of the floor, just a clear out, letting Jackie Young go to work.
Jackie Young with 17 points. Boston to the corner. Hull, catch, fire, and hit. Correct call. Evans dishes. Ray whips a pass inside. What a denial from Lexie Hull.
The Hull able to save the play.
12-point game, a little under 2.5 to go. Hull hits Indiana's first field goal of the quarter.
The Fever didn't just lose a game, they had it stolen. But what they gained was louder, a spotlight, a following, and a sense of purpose. They proved that grit can still matter in a league that sometimes feels scripted by narrative. And for the Aces, that win will always carry an asterisk in the eyes of those who saw what really happened. Still, that's why basketball never ends at the buzzer. Stories keep bouncing long after the ball stops. The Fever's pain became proof that heart beats hierarchy, and that fans, armed with footage and passion, can challenge even the loudest scoreboard. The question now isn't whether Indiana can bounce back, it's how many people will be watching when they do. If you're one of those people who still believes in real basketball, subscribe right now. Help us grow this community that tells the truth behind the box score. Like the video if you stand with the Fever, and drop a comment telling us which call changed the game for you. Every engagement helps this story reach more fans who refuse to let unfairness go unspoken. Because the Fever's season isn't over, it's just getting louder.